Hello everyone, welcome to Red Snapper. My name's MJ, and this is Snap or Pass, where we discuss the new card coming to Snap each week, or weeks like this where there's 2 new cards. We talk about the mechanics, synergies, decks, locations, star ratings, and I ultimately tell you if it's a Snap or Pass, whether you should get the card. These first weeks of the season are always a little bit different because this is a season pass variant, so we look at the card backs and see if it's actually worthwhile getting the overall season pass. But we'll discuss the card in detail anyway. You can use the description / the timeline to fast forward to chapters if you want to. If you're disrespectful and you don't want to watch the whole video, nah, kidding. Get out of this video what you want, yeah? And if you do go on to enjoy it and you're not subscribed, please subscribe. We're on our way to 2,099 subscribers and we've got a very fun video planned. So, Agent Venom. He's a 2/4. On reveal, set the power of all cards in your deck to 4. We're going to discuss him in a minute and his mechanics, but first of all, let's talk about the season pass itself and some of these variants. So the variants this season, I think they're all Pandart Studios. Like, I think this Venom and this Carnage, these are the 2 cards that you get if you buy the season pass. Yeah, I think they're Pandart Studios. I think the Venom is incredible. I think the Carnage is actually equally incredible, if not better. I think the Carnage looks so good with that like axe coming out and swinging. That's so cool. And the Carnage card back. God, I'm a big symbiote boy, so this season makes me extremely happy. Anyway, that is the pass. Let's move on to the mechanics of Agent Venom. I think the key archetypes for this card are going to be Cerebro, Negative, so Mr. Negative decks, and the set power archetype. I wasn't sure what else to call that, guys. As you can see, if you're a long-term or a long-time viewer of the channel, you see I've got these new tags for archetypes. Do you like them? Let me know. I think they look cool as f***, to be honest. Anyway, so mechanics about Agent Venom. He affects all cards in your deck in comparison to Bast, who affects cards in your hand. So this is a really interesting note. And considering the set power archetype, or whatever you want to call that, the only thing that they could do previously was use Bast and set the power of cards in your hand to 3, which was good, but it was limiting. You know, with a maximum hand size of 7. It is 7, isn't it? With a maximum hand size of 7, you playing down Bast, that's one of them. It's only ever going to hit 6 cards. Which, yeah, is often more than you can even play anyway. But at least Agent Venom is going to hit more cards than that. And you can potentially reach further into your deck with things like Magic extending the game. Especially as Magic would get a +2 power buff with Agent Venom. And cards like Crystal as well if you want to do that sort of thing. If you want to do that sort of thing. Hey, guys, I'm not saying that's good. But you might want to. Actually, I should also say that I'm filming this a few days before the developer update video, so we don't know if he's definitely going to release with this power and this stat line. But yeah, if he changes, I sort of wouldn't be too surprised. Honestly, I can see him come down to 2-3, to 2-2, to 2-1, to 2-0, and it wouldn't surprise me. I do hope his power stays the same with actually setting the power of all cards in your deck to 4, though. I hope this stays the same. Anyway, as a 2/4, there's a huge power alongside his ability, which is absolutely gigantic. Let's talk about that ability that he actually has. So this is massive potential value, buffing 5 drawn cards in turns 3 to 7, so this is if you've got Magic, which is an approximate gain of +20 power. If so, let me just be clear. If you play Agent Venom on turn 2, then you play Magic on turn 3 to give you that extra reach into your deck and the extra turn. This is basically a +20 power card, which is just crazy. On top of a 4 power card, like this makes him a 2/24. Like, the value there is just insane. But let's talk about the pros of the card. So, he has above average base power for a 2-cost card and a far-reaching effect. This is basically just recapping the stuff I just said. Yeah, 2/4 is nuts. Wouldn't be surprised if he's changed before he comes out. If he is still a 2/4, then he's absolutely cracked, and his ability is so strong and so powerful. I do want to say one quick note on that, actually, in that the number of cards that you can play with Agent Venom is actually not that many. If you look at your collection, if most of those cards are above 4 power, or certainly at least half of them are really, or about half of them are above 4 power, it basically means you can't... Did I say plower? I meant to say power. If I didn't say power, this is extra embarrassing, but there we go. Anyway, all those cards above 4 power don't really work that well with Agent Venom. So this does limit deck building, and we'll talk about that in the cons anyway. Another pro, he gives Cerebro 4 unique new options, especially strong if he hits Cerebro and Mystique. Cerebro and Mystique, the absolute mainstays of the Cerebro archetype. And the fact that Agent Venom is going to give them a +4 power to each, which is technically not even a +4 power to both of them actually. It's more like a +8 power to both of them, because if you can get their power matching the Cerebro number of the deck, so Cerebro 4 as it would obviously be in this, you're not giving them the +4, you're giving them the +8, which is just crazy. Like, that's so strong. Like, Cerebro 4 is going to be a mad deck, especially when you think about the other cards that work well in Cerebro decks, and cards that just generally Agent Venom is going to work really well with, which of course we'll look at in the synergies and decks section in a few slides time. But just throwing a name out there, what about Brood? Think on that for a damn second. And it can have a colossal impact on some cards, for example Iron Man and Gore. So this is individual cards where the power swing is just absurd. Now, of course, Gore is a future card, so he's out in a couple of months, and he might change. But currently, he is data mined as a 6/3 ongoing +2 power for each on-reveal card in play. So giving him a +7 power on top of that is absolutely crazy. Right, now let's talk about some cons though. So as I said a minute ago, it limits deck building because it has to pretty much be a build around card, and it only fits with specific cards. So half of your deck, all of those cards with that higher power, pretty much just cancel them out because he's not going to work well with them. There is a huge variance in quality between early game draw and late game draw. So if you pull this guy on turn 2, you're going to be absolutely chuffed because, I mean, it's a snap on turn 2. It's a snap condition for sure. However, if you draw him at the end of the game, it's such a high impact that has not had, because all of that potential power, as we spoke about earlier, the potential +20 power, that just hasn't happened if you draw this guy late. So that's really bad. And he negatively, I just tried to hide a burp, but I left it in, which is doing a really bad job at hiding it. He negatively synergizes with some of his synergies, for example, Bast, or if you've already played Mr. Negative in a Negs deck. What I mean by that is, if you already played Mr. Negative, say you've played, I don't know, Zabu, Mr. Negative, and you flip the power of all of your cards, which could include cards like maybe Null, maybe Zola. Those cards have now become 0 costed and 6 power. Then you might draw into your Agent Venom, who's now a 4/2, and has this ability of flipping, of setting the power of all the cards in your deck to 4. It's actually going to bring the power level down on some of your cards potentially, and etc, etc. I probably didn't really need to explain that, but I did anyway. Anyway, let's move on to locations. Yes, this is the new and improved Snap or Pass, guys, where we've got additional slides. This is not the only additional slide for you. Don't say that I never give you guys anything, or that I'm not willing to improve, because I bloody well am. Did I just say, I'm awful? I'll tell you how I could improve your speech. Good locations include TVA. Not only just playing Agent Venom on turn 2 as a 2/4, just a high power play for TVA, but it's also, presuming you've built around Agent Venom, you're going to draw cards like Thena and Kitty Pryde. If you play them on the next turn, Bush, that's like 7 power, because Kitty will go back into your hand. But then the turn after, you could do another 2 cards and it's just absolutely cracked and broken and crazy. Attilan, and actually Asgard as well. These are the draw locations. Going to allow you to reach further into your deck and pull those very valuable cards that you've enhanced. Bad would include Weird World, because Weird World is just awful, especially really, I guess a turn 3 Weird World is the bad one when you've played Agent Venom. If your opponent then steals 2 of your super juiced up cards, that's really bad. And then Quantum Realm, gonna bring the base power of your cards back down, so you don't want that. Counters, pretty much the only ones I could think of here were Shadow King and Cosmo. Shadow King, of course, is going to reset the power of any card in that location. Now, the thing that is worth bearing in mind with Agent Venom is that his power is so far-reaching, it's going to hit multiple cards in your deck. So again, their Shadow King is only going to be able to fix that in one location. You might have the other locations where he's still able to benefit. So not masses they can do with Shadow King, even if they do have it. And then Cosmo, of course, just simply because Agent Venom is an on-reveal, and Cosmo can shut those down. Although, how likely is that if you played Agent Venom on turn 2? Impossibly likely. Well, sorry, you shouldn't say impossible, because like locations which reduce costs of cards exist. So let's talk about key synergies and deck ideas for you. We've spoken about most of these, but Bast, yeah, basically doing a similar thing, but obviously affecting the hand instead of the deck. They might work well together in the same deck. I don't know. I've got at least one deck here which does feature Bast as well. Hood, I think we mentioned in this video. I'm filming this back to back with the season preview video, but this is such a big swing. I mean, I certainly said about Gore at least. This is the same kind of swing. Adding 4 power onto a -3 card is a 7 power swing, which is crazy. And Hood himself, adding a 6 power card to your hand that costed 1, this is so much value output. Super, super strong. Cerebro, we've already talked about. Ironheart is an interesting one because, again, her value, all of her value is in her on-reveal effect. So she's sort of a 3/6 power card to start with. If you can jump that up by 4, that's crazy. And Sage, again, similarly, such a strong power card, even just without the extra boost of the 4 power. Surely a 4 power Sage, a base poor power. Ah, por favor, can I have the sage butter with the butternut squash? What is this? The fuck? Awful, awful, awful. Awful, man. You horrible man. And Mr. Negative. Now, the interesting thing with Mr. Negative is you probably... I don't know. I think Agent Venom is potentially an almost backup plan to Mr. Negative. It's a bit awkward because you might have Agent Venom in your hand and you don't know whether you should play Agent Venom or wait to see if you draw Mr. Negative. You might have a deck where you've got Zabu and you've got Zabu and Agent Venom in your hand, and maybe you should play Zabu but you don't have Negative. So there is some awkwardness there, but I think they might still work well together. Sorry, I just glanced away because I think my wife is hoovering. I hope she doesn't enter this room. She shouldn't. She knows I'm recording. She wouldn't do that, would she? Anyway, let's look at the specific decks. So the Cerebro 4 deck idea I've got for you capitalizes on the great value that Agent Venom gives. So I've got mainly low-costed cards here. With only really the only card here above 3 energy is Iron Man, which surely you'll be able to get down. And then you've got other strong cards here that you might want to play on turn 5 alongside Iron Man, like Spider-Ham, Korg, or actually I was about to say M'Baku, but actually M'Baku's in the deck because having 4 power, it makes him even more valuable to jump out. But you might have drawn him. I mean, you will have drawn him. It's M'Baku. But the other cards that really benefit from having this 4 power slapped onto them is Mysterio, that makes those illusions 4 power, and we got Brood in here as well. And eagle-eyed viewers out there might see a little curveball in this deck of Patriot. So we've got Brood, Mysterio, and Mr. Sinister in this deck, which all feature those no power cards. Guys, I don't know about you. When I play Cerebro, I don't draw Cerebro. I never draw Cerebro. So Patriot here is your little hidden backup plan, your extra little weapon. And yeah, it might not work out because, to be fair, maybe this deck crumbles if you don't draw Cerebro. But we've discussed it. Maybe that power output of Agent Venom is so strong that actually maybe you might be alright even if you don't draw Cerebro. And heck, even if you don't draw Patriot. Let's talk about that. Anyway, moving on to the next deck. This is Wreaking Havoc. If you look at this deck, this is a very interesting one. This is even lower in value than the previous deck that we talked about, which only had Iron Man. No card in here goes above 3 energy, and that's because I've got Havoc in here, and basically I want you to play Havoc by turn 3. Or certainly by turn 4. But you can get it out early. Can you imagine a 4 power Havoc? You get him out on turn 3, I guess you'd get him out, and he's like a 2/8 already. Absolutely crazy. By the end of the game, he's what, 4, 8, 16, 20, 24. It's absolutely great. He can single-handedly do a location if he doesn't get Shang-Chi'd. The other interesting thing about this deck is just how many low-cost cards we got. And of course, if we do play Havoc, and we do play Havoc by turn 3, it does actually allow you to play 2 cards on the final turn in the flavour of Wasp and one of your powerful 3-costed cards here. Ideally, you want to be playing Cassandra Nova earlier than the end of the game. But hey, Sage isn't a problem at the end of the game here. And just even if you don't have Havoc and you're not limited with your energy, it allows you to play out cards like well, all of these cards. I'm doing terribly explaining this deck, but you know what it does, guys. It's lots of cheap, powerful cards who've got a big ceiling. I mean, look at some of these cards, right? Ant-Man as a 1/4 is nuts because he gets the +3 or +4 is it these days? He's huge himself. Silver Sable coming out as a 1/4. She then steals 2 power, so she's a 1/6. There's absolutely mind-blowing swings here. And Aranya, just a good and powerful card that can pump out power into another card. Yeah, very cool, very interesting deck. I'm excited to try it. And then the final deck for you is this negative that we got. So we got the negative mainstays like Null, Arnim Zola, Iron Man, and Mystique. And of course you do want to Mr. Negative. Now this is not a greedy Mr. Negative deck. This is a more magic-centric deck. Yeah, I like Jane Foster in negative decks, but I do think it's greedy. And I think the cube rate, come on. If your opponent is Mr. Negative and they play Jane Foster on 5 and you stay in that game, you're stupid. To be honest, you're stupid, right? So I think I'd rather play the magic, draw the game out, and try to be less greedy with it. And then just some of the other cards here, I focused more so on the cards that would get a big boost from being 4-powered themselves as well, rather than necessarily just flipping. So obviously cards like Sage, Ironheart, Athena, and Silver Sable, you would rather give them the +4 power from Agent Venom than actually flip them. So yeah, as I said, you've kind of got these 2 ways that you can go with this. Let me just have a quick look. So there's another new slide for you guys. This is star ratings. This is like literally genuinely just completely copied from other content creators, like my guy Docty and my guy Cozy. I don't know why I'm saying they're my guys. They're not actually my guys, although keep your ears out because you Docty fans might be treated to some Docty and MJ action soon. I've said too much. Anyway, star ratings. Overall, I think the card is a 4-star card. I think he's very, very powerful and has this insane power output. But those deck building limitations are definitely a consideration. And it's that big variance of drawing him early versus drawing him late. So, yeah, it's those few things that are holding him back for me. But from an archetype perspective, within his archetypes being, I would say primarily like the set power and Cerebro, he's like a 6-star. He's an absolute staple in these archetypes. Like he pretty much, could you have even called the set power archetype, whatever we're going to call it, could you have even called that a main archetype before this card came out? Just on the basis of Bast? I'm not sure you could have. From a fun perspective, I think he'll be pretty fun. I think the power will feel good with him, but maybe not the most super fun card. So I'll give him 3.5 for that. And competitive, I think he's very strong. Giving him 5-star from a competitive angle, because as I say, if you do play him on turn 2, the power output is silly. So ultimately, is he a snap or pass? Yes, he is a snap. Now, I always get the season pass anyway. I generally think they're really good. Not good value, because I think everything in the game is extortionate, so I don't necessarily think it's good value, but I think it's worth getting. I think you get good variance, good currency out of it, and I think the card looks very fun. I said cun. I just said cun instead of card looks fun. So I'm going absolutely delirious. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you're new, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.